brains together trying to figure out. We have, and again, if you look at it, right, we are the biggest two-wheeler and now possibly a four-wheeler market in the world. We use on a daily basis. But when it comes to competitive motorsport, that number goes down drastically, right? So it's a lot more deeper than just trying to figure out how to get it right. You know, it's inherently the way we are made as a society, where we pick onto things very, very quickly, but then we are happy to just use them as a need. You know, we don't really convert that into, and I've had this issue with when I was in Red Bull. We've tried multiple sports in this country, and we have the talent, but unfortunately, we don't have the ecosystem to make it commercially viable for us to keep pumping in the money and make it competitive as well.
Yeah, and I think if you talk on a global scale, rather, numbers are there. There have been enough esports tournaments that have filled out Madison Square Gardens. In fact, this year's Super Bowl viewers were less than last year's international Dota tournament. So we have the viewers globally. In India, not there yet. As he rightly said, we're still struggling with the competitive gamers. We're trying to get the numbers up. That is why I see so much potential.
Yeah, so I would just put it across, as you rightly said. So I think the community that we need around the gaming is something very restrictive at this point in time in India. I would just give an example of one good stuff that we have done in the Singapore market for us, right? So we identified 3 big gamers in those markets and actually did a tie-up with Apple, and we asked them to compete against each other, and we did all the promotions around them on the Apple Store. And we saw a massive surge in terms of the followers of all those 3 big influencer gamers actually participated and creating a noise around that competitive spirit, which was among those 3 gamers, right? And it helped us significantly in that market in terms of the kind of downloads that we have seen and the kind of traction that we have seen with that particular event. But yeah, effectively coming back to the same point, in India at this point in time, as I see personally, I say is that the community that we require, the scale is not there at this point in time to have event organized of the level that we are actually talking about. Right? So I think it's still some time for India, but I think the enablers are getting in place for India, which is the best thing. This is how I would put it across. I think maybe 2 years down the line, we are sitting across together. We will be actually talking in a different scale altogether.
I'll come to Mandeep in just 1 second, but Ashwin, you are in the sort of creation of games and everything else. There was one point that was being made by the panel out here that some amount of indigenization of games may need to be looked at to make it more relevant to the communities out here, so that there's some empathy with the subject matter out there. Is that something that is being begun to be looked at?
Sure. So esports works very differently globally, right? And I believe some kind of Indian nature needs to be brought into games for esports as well. And very honestly, currently we even looking at, doing stick cricket tournaments, and that might not be esports for the global market, but that might be a very telecastable game or a event. And we're yet to, honestly, I totally agree with everyone here that it's still a very nascent stage. Honestly, all of us are just learning about esports. How is it shaping up in India? But definitely Indian games or Indian-centric, way of esports will come into being. And as we've been seeing actually, even today on our portal, we actually have games across PC, console, and mobile. And when we started Gaming Monk 2 years back, we started off with PC events. We slowly went on to console events, and now our major focus is mobile events. And as I've seen in a lot of industries in India, India does tend to skip a generation of, basically the whole path, right, and the whole life cycle of an industry. So in India, we never saw the console era be that big, right, because we had smartphone penetration already there by then. So that's how, and even today on our portal, our number one game, the top game on our portal is Clash Royale, which is a mobile game, Clash Royale. This is a game developed by Supercell, and it has more than 10 million daily active users in India.
Sorry, what's the name again?
Clash Royale.
Clash Royale.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a game developed by Supercell, and it's got 10 million daily active users in India. And I have actually witnessed this myself. I saw this kid. He's my age actually, but I saw this kid playing next to me on the metro, the Clash Royale game, and actually was a part of the tournament that we were running on a website. And that's what we actually thought, that people actually compete, mobile games, or let's say even any games, compete on games, win some cash prizes as well, while just traveling to work. I mean, that could be really good for everyone, right?
Right. Let me come to Mandeep, okay? And I want to ask you this question from a perspective of brand building, okay? Esports in this country is perhaps at a very nascent stage at the moment. The hope is that it becomes a mega event a la Southeast Asia and China and whatever it is, where I believe the gamers earn in tens of millions of dollars, okay? Which is like a humongous sort of sum. Obviously that sum comes from the revenue that it generates, okay? So let's cut out all the sort of technicalities of the product. At the end of the day, it is a product that is to be sold to X number of people, right? So from that perspective, is it not true that you will need to have some sense of when the maturities are reached, how are you accessing the people, whether it is through screen X so much, screen Y so much, because in the short run, as we have found, and this is for all of you, okay, I'm not sure how many of you attended the marketing session yesterday, but there's a lot of confusion. At the end of the day, you got to get the monies either from pay-per-view, it is, or pay as you go along.